if you pop it into the chat feature, which is on the right-hand side. Yeah, again, I'll cover this stuff again in a sec, but if you you got the chat feature on the right-hand side, and if you can stick your questions in there, we've got Chloe and Sammy in the office here who will be keeping an eye on that chat, and will be firing those questions through to myself, Steve, and Rolf. Anything that we don't manage to cover during the session for any reason, we will follow up with a blog post and an email that we'll share with you after the session. So there's every chance when we do these kind of sessions that a lot of new stuff pops up, and people have a lot of questions. So we'll try our best to sort of circle back to stuff. But if we do miss anything, we will pick it up in our sort of retrospective blog post that we'll do on the session as well. I think, let me just have a look at my numbers here. I think we're nearly there. I think we've got most people. I'll just give it one more minute, and then we'll get cracking. It's lovely to see everybody. Lovely to see everybody's front rooms. Right then, I think we shall start. Oh, hang on. Every time I try to do that, more people are joining. So thank you for joining us this morning. This is our first session of this type, and hopefully it won't be the last, and hopefully we can get a little bit of information from you guys that helps us with the direction of the product moving forward, and you can get a bit of an understanding of what that process might look like and how you'll be able to influence it to your benefit and for your organization's benefit as we move forwards. You've got, with just to give quick introductions with us today, you've got myself, Chris, Steve, and Rolf, and we've got our two new marketing staff, which is Chloe and Sammy, who are at the ready to answer questions. Flora has asked if people would be interested just to share who they are in the right hand side in the chat column. It's also useful as well to see if everyone knows what the chat column is. So if you go to the three dots at the bottom right, there's an option to open up the chat, and you could just put a little message in there saying who you are and where you're from. That'd be quite nice. I feel a little bit like Cilla Black there, telling people you know, your organization, your name, and we got it there as a little record for people in the future as well. The aim of today is twofold, really. It's one, just to tell you a little bit about what's been going on and give you a bit of an update on some of our plans that we've already got. And then the second phase of sort of today's session is to try and explain to you how we intend to move forwards with regards to the product development, how we envisage you guys being able to feed into that process, and hopefully impact the way the product develops and improves. The last 8 months, I'm sure for everybody's been a little bit crazy and a little bit different to their normal working year, and it's been no different for us here at TeamKinetic. When the sort of COVID situation first kicked off, we were very aware of the role that volunteers were potentially going to have to play in that situation, and our sort of business as usual plan was thrown a bit up into the air as we had to move, everyone work from home. I mean, it worked quite well for Rolf. Rolf moved to the country about that point anyway, so for him it wasn't a massive difference as he sort of moved out into the countryside. But for the rest of us moving out of the office, it was a bit of a new situation. But what we found is our traditional product development roadmap, which was based around 3 or 4 updates, 2 sort of major ones and 2 minor ones a year, was kind of thrown up in the air because we were required to build some stuff very, very quickly to try and help the communities that we support to be able to respond quite quickly to the pandemic. And as a result of that, our product roadmap has been somewhat screwed up. And we're quite keen to try and get back to a little bit more business as usual, if you will. So I guess what Rolf is going to talk about a bit today is how we're going to try and not just go back to business as usual, but try and develop a roadmap that's a little bit more transparent to you guys as our customers, and where you guys can have a little bit more say in in helping us set priorities as to what goes on that roadmap, what are the things that come to the top of that roadmap, and what are the things that may not. And we've got a bit of a process for that, and we've got some tools that hopefully make that a little bit easier. Oh, let me just close those things. Okay, turn that off there. And one of the things that we're quite keen on is, one, trying to explain the direction of travel that we think is required, but also trying to get your input into that direction around some of our bigger features that we're looking to develop. We're also looking to try and, with the existing product, where we can improve it and improve our understanding of the way you guys are using it out in the field, and take on that learning and try and, if you will, take a deep dive into some of your user examples to better understand how we further our development on the things that already exist in the product. And then the other thing that's a really important thing for us is understanding the priority of these things. One of the things that I want you to take away from today is, although some of the things we may talk about today may be in the next release, the work of the steering group really isn't going to be about so much the next release, but maybe the next 2 or 3 years of what's important and what we've got to do and that kind of thing. So although some of the feedback you'll give us today may very well influence what comes out in the next release that we do, it's not necessarily the direct aim of this group about next release. It's more the next release, the release after, the release after that, and the release after that. So we're trying to be big picture where we can with you today, rather than it just being specifically around what comes out in the next 8 weeks or 12 weeks. In terms of sort of the commitment we need from you as customers, we don't want this to be some laborious task that you feel compelled to have to be involved with. We want it to be relatively light touch. We want it to be something where you feel you've got a specialist interest, you can drop into it. And if it's not something that bothers you, you don't have to be involved that much. What we'll tend to find is certain tasks will require a situation like this where we're face to face, and certain tasks might be something we invite a group of you to give us a bit more of an in-depth breakdown on. So it's not, there's no heavy commitment from we're requiring from you guys at this point. What we'll probably do is, after this session, we'll follow up with a bit of a doodle poll about what people can and can't do, and how heavily they can commit and how light touch they want it to be. But really, it's a pretty open group, and we're going to try and reflect everything we cover in these sessions back onto our social media accounts. So if you're not on our Facebook group, if you're not following us on Twitter, go away, do that right now while you're sat in front of your computer. Make sure you've got us at TeamKinetic UK on Twitter. That you're in the Sammy or Chloe are going to put the links up here to make sure that we've got you on the Facebook managers group. So if you can't make a session or whatever, you can see what's going on elsewhere. If you do have any questions, if you just want to pop them in the side panel, and like I say, Chloe and Sammy are on them. Anything we miss, we will pick up after the session in our blog post. So what tends to happen when we talk about new stuff is people often hit us with 4 or 5 questions quite quickly. We may not be able to get through everything in the time we've got. We don't really want to keep you for 2 hours if we can avoid it. 2 hours listening to me, Steve, and Rolf Witter on one of these sessions is more than enough for anybody of the same mind. And that's about it, really. The session is to be interactive. It is to be open. So keep posting your questions. Keep telling us what you need. If you have got an interesting aside or anecdote around some of the things we'll be talking about, share it with us. Just put a little note in that panel. And what we'll try and do is we'll try and come to you during that little section and have a listen to what you've got to say. We want your feedback. It's really important for us out of this session, not only to tell you about what we want to do, but to get an idea about what you need us to do, understand those priorities, and if there is particular cases that will impact the way we go about thinking about some of these features, we want to hear them. Okay. That's 1 second. We've got a couple of things coming through here. Okay, great, Kerry. We'll have a look at that stuff there. I'm going to pass over to Steve. I'm going to pass over to Rolf, who's going to sort of talk to you a little bit around the roadmap and the roadmap process, and some of the thinking we've got behind how we're going to prioritize some of the things on that roadmap. Enough for me. Over to you, Rolf.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks very much for joining us. Can everyone see the big blue slide on the screen?
Give us a thumbs up on your video if you can.
Fantastic. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is our roadmap. although we've always listened to people's requests and have taken on board what people want, and we used to do a session at our volunteer conference, we've been a little opaque about what's actually happening until it's already in the next release and we start talking sort of 20 or so weeks before the next release about what's coming. And we haven't talked much or revealed much about the stage before that, which is the sort of roadmap. What we've decided we're going to try to do is introduce some of the major themes that we're thinking about developing via something called the Moscow project. So Moscow stands for must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and won't-haves, or wish list. And it's a way of ordering potential features, and you assess them based on their feasibility, their impact, their cost, those sorts of things. And anything that scores highly in all those categories ends up in a must-have, all the way down to the wish list, which for some reason is much more difficult to implement. So what we're going to do moving forward, obviously this is the first theme group as Chris was talking about, but moving forward we'll start collecting these ideas and putting them into the Moscow table. When you go back to your systems today, under the help menu, top menu, there's a new entry which is roadmap, which is where this stuff is going to live. So this on the screen here is what you'll see when you go into that page. At the minute it's just the must-haves. These won't be everything we're planning on fixing, so it won't include all the sort of bug fixes and slight small changes. These are more sort of larger thematic, sort of impactful changes that we're thinking of doing. For instance, the first couple up there are the customization of more registration fields and the general customization of the registration and onboarding process, an auto schedule feature, which is aimed at distributing a large number of sessions over a large number of volunteers automatically based on a set of simple rules. So these are quite big ideas. Also on that page, you'll be able to upvote and downvote ideas, no matter what section they're in. And we'll keep a tally of those upvotes and downvotes and use that to try and inform moving items up or down that list. And then at some point before the next version is fixed, the things that we've decided we are able to do in the next version will switch over into the confirm column. And then we know that you've got a pretty decent idea that they'll be coming in the next version. And then they'll progress then into that sort of 20-week cycle before the next release. So if you've got any ideas about new features, you can get in touch with us in any of the normal ways. On the support tickets now, you'll notice that the very top question asks you whether it's a feature request, a bug, or just some help. It defaults to just help, but you can select a new feature if you just want to tell us about a new feature you suggest, and it'll probably end up in this Moscow table for everyone else to have a little look at as well. So that's hopefully going to bring a bit more clarity to where we're heading in the medium to long term, as opposed to what well, before COVID anyway, the sort of release cycle we went through, which was the short term. Again, if you've got any ideas right now that are on top of your head that have been burning issues you want to raise, stick them in the comment section on the right, or open a support ticket after the presentation. The next thing, which is part of the roadmap, I guess, is the community tasks. I know some of you on this call are already starting to use the community tasks. These were set up in response to the COVID crisis and the fact that there were a lot of small, short-term volunteering activities going on in the community through neighbours and things like this, delivering stuff, getting shopping, getting medicines, just calls to see how people are, those sorts of things. It works in a fairly simple manner. Apologies if you already use it, and this is teaching grandma to suck eggs. You basically add tasks. There's a set of information that you can add. They get published to volunteers and they can apply to tasks. Then they get approved. They get sent all the rest of the details they need to complete the task, including the location and the name of the recipient, and then they complete those tasks. So it's a fairly simple, self-contained cycle of new task, application, authorization, and then completion. If you're interested in finding more about the community tasks, there is help available on the actual community task page, but in order to find that, you'll have to enable the community tasks, which is via the super admin menu and the options. And there's a whole section there which is labeled right at the top, COVID-19. And in there, you can switch the community task system on, and then you can take a view, take a look, have a play with it. At that point, it won't be public to your volunteers. That's another option, so you can keep it closed off as a test. And there's help available on that page. We've also written a few blog posts about it, which you can get via our blog, which is teamkinetic.co.uk/blog. And there's a link there on the slide, which is it's one of the key blogs we've written about it. All this will be available afterwards. We'll send it all out later on, so don't worry about trying to catch the links now. We were wondering how many people are using it now that are on the meeting. If you're using it, just raise your hands so we can get a sort of idea of how many people are using it. Okay, so there aren't that many people invested in it yet, but we think moving forward after COVID, it still has a place. There's a lot of this community volunteering going on, and it's great to capture that and also to encourage volunteers to get involved and to help build that community. There's probably a lot of it going on under the radar already. So moving away from COVID, we want to keep using this method of micro volunteering. But we need some help from you guys about where you'd like to see it. Right now, what happens is the COVID app that the volunteers access is separate to the main volunteering. At the time, this was done just because we had to do it quickly, and it was more convenient to do that than try and squeeze it into the app and the current application and the problems and the complications that would arise. So right now, it's a separate little what's called the progressive web app, which people can use on their mobile phone or their desktop, wherever they are. And it's quite easy to access. But moving forward, we're going to be asking people whether they want to see that brought back into the main application stream or stay separate as it is now. So that's the big question for us moving forward with COVID. I mean, in terms of the roadmap and features, again, any ideas you've got around the COVID functionality or the community tasks, as it'll be called moving forward, just let us know. But that's the big issue for us right now, is where does it go? How does it fit in with your normal volunteer processes, and where would you like to see it? The next thing that leads into is the general mobile development. All our development stopped during COVID because the developers we were using couldn't get to work. So that's all stopped. We did have a new version with a lot more of the extra features set in for both Android and iOS. So that got us thinking, especially with our experience of building the progressive web app for the community tasks. It is possible to build an application which has some of the characteristics of a native mobile app, but without the front loading in time and effort it takes to get it on the App Store, get it released, get it checked, all those sorts of things. So you then generally have a faster development cycle with a progressive web app. So that brought us to thinking, do we continue with a native mobile development, or do we switch to a progressive web app for mobile users? As mentioned, the native development gives the best overall experience in one-to-one sort of cases because you have access to all the phone technology. It's nice and quick. But it does slow down that development, whereas PWAs are fast, fast to build, fast to implement new features, but they don't offer all those capabilities, and especially on Apple devices. Apple generally don't like progressive webs, or at least they've not embraced them wholly, because they're a way of people bypassing the App Store. But for our functions and our feature list, we could tick most of the boxes in a progressive web app. So that's something to think about. I don't know how many of you encourage the use of the native mobile app, but it'd be nice to get your thoughts on that, and where you think we should push, and if you've had an experience with progressive web apps, whether you think they're good or bad, that sort of stuff. For now, we're just going to continue pushing with the native development and try and get the next versions out at least. But after those next versions, then we'll seriously give consideration to switching to progressive web apps. The next thing that I'm going to talk about, the last thing I'm going to talk about, is all about the UX and UI, which is user experience and user interface. We talked about our set of guidelines and rules for our interface. We called it Focus, which was a nod towards trying to make sure that it enabled a good workflow for our users. It allows them to focus on what the tasks they were doing without getting in the way. You'll have noticed that over the last 12 months, certainly, quite a few of the pages are moving towards this sort of similar look and feel, with similar capabilities and a similar way of doing the same tasks on different pages. So this is an example of the opportunity management page, and this contains quite a lot of the features of Focus. So we've got the sidebar down the side, which gives you sidebar down the side, of course, which gives you access to the extra features within that page. So it means that the menu's over on one side. It can be, we're not restricted in the width or size or length and things like that. So we can get quite complicated sets of functionality in one page, and they're quite easy to access, rather than being all stacked on top of each other on a big long page. You can switch between tabs. You've got the universal search at the top, which is now everywhere, and all the notifications, help, and settings icons, which are now everywhere as well. These are our new alert messages. This is how they're going to look: red, green, and there's a yellow one for just a standard message. You've got tables, which are orderable. They have accessible tooltips, single actions, bulk actions, these sorts of things. So this gives a flavor of that page, of that sort of focus idea and where we're heading towards. And we will slowly be picking up all the pages and driving them towards this sort of look and feel. And a similar side on the front end as well. We're also in talks with Salford University and talking to some of them, their guys there who are experts in UX and UI and also security, and they're helping us do an audit, and they're going to be doing some user testing and that sort of stuff to try and work out which of these features are working and which aren't. And again, the whole point of this meeting is to get your views and ideas and problems and issues and things with this idea. I mean, is this UX UI working for you? Is it good? Is it bad? Which bits are bad? Which bits are good? All those sorts of ideas are fantastic to get. But if we don't, but this is where we'll be heading, certainly in the medium term. So we won't be introducing any new user interface elements. All we're doing is trying to bring everything into line. There are still quite a few pages out there that have been left behind that are of lesser importance and haven't had the sort of focus treatment. So we're looking to bring all those in line. That's it from me. I hope it wasn't too boring. Obviously this first meeting, as Chris has mentioned, it's a little bit us telling you things. Normally it would be a review of what you have told us and what we've done with it. So I hope it doesn't feel too much like a lecture, and I hope that it set your minds to spinning and thinking about things you might want to tell us. So I'll switch over to Steve now. It's his turn.
Just very quickly nipping in there, Rolf. We've got plenty of stuff going through on the side panel here. Like I say, what we'll probably do is we'll pull this stuff together, because we don't want to keep you on here for hours and hours today. And what we're going to do is we're going to follow up this session with a Google form where you can give us some feedback on some of the things that Rolf said, so we can get some of your thoughts down on paper, and then we can sort of codify that stuff and use that in our thinking for what's important to you and what's not. Keep putting your stuff in this side panel. We will come back to some of these questions towards the end of once Steve's got through his section, and try and answer some of these things. But we'll save some of these to the end. Otherwise, I think we could end up down a wormhole of 1,000,001 sort of different things. We'll try and get Steve get through his stuff first.
Okay. Thanks for all the questions and ideas there. Brilliant. Just what we want.
Okay. Hi, everyone. As you know, my name's Steve. I'm going to take you through the next section now. Thank you, Rolf. Rolf's got control of the slides here, so I have to just trust Rolf for this one. So, first I want to quickly take you through how we do these updates. So we usually do two updates a year, or major updates a year, and that's the basic kind of flow of how it works. So obviously weeks 0 to 8, that's when we're looking through all the different kind of things that people have mentioned to us, or we call blue sky tasks. So we have a list of all the tasks. When someone says, oh, I think it'd be a good idea if, I don't know, that title bar was somewhere else or was a different color, whatever it is, then that gets added to a blue sky list. So that blue sky list is then, we analyze it and go through all the tasks, of which I think there's probably about 200 or something at the moment. Sounds like a lot, but some of them are tiny ones, some of them are major ones. And we scan through all of those, and we pick out which ones we think are best suited to go into the next update. And it's on a number of factors which I'll go on to shortly. That's probably where we're going to be holding the steering group meetings, probably during that first 8 weeks of an update. Because obviously we'll get an idea, and then we need some feedback from yourselves in order to to decide. We'll get a final kind of decision on which ones are definitely going to be included. And once we've done that, after that first kind of 8 weeks, then we freeze the version. So what that means is we stop taking any more update requests. We say, okay, that's it. The list is done. Any more update requests that come in, they go back into the Blue Sky list to get analysed and discussed before the next update, if that makes sense. Thanks, Rolf. Once we've freezed the version, then we go on to the actual build. So we start building it and testing it. So that's basically developing a function, and it comes to this internally gets tested by us for all the different browsers and this, that, and the other. And once we feel that it's pretty much there, then we go on to week 16. We go on to customer testing. So that's when we give you access to beta, our beta system, which is beta.teamkinetic.co.uk. But don't worry, we share that information anyway with yourselves. So that's your chance then, the customer's chance then, to go in and play around with a kind of a blank system and made up data in it, but it will display all the kind of updated features and this, that, and the other. It's a separate new version of the system. Once we've allowed users to test it, obviously they'll flag up whether there's any issues and stuff, using support tickets usually, and then we will go through, analyze those support tickets, and we'll make any changes just to make sure fix any final bugs or anything like that that's kind of outstanding. Once we've done that, then we say, okay, then we've got a new system. It's all been built. It's been tested by us. It's been tested by the customer. It's ready to roll out. And all we do is we take that new version and we just replace the old version with it, essentially. Okay, so that's the process, and it's a 20. We have major updates, which are 24, 6-month updates essentially, and then we have minor ones, which are half of that as well. Minor ones, similar, virtually exactly the same kind of process. It's just half the timeline. That's all. We do have the kind of detailed blog, which gives a bit more detail than what's shown on this slide here, available, and obviously we'll be sharing these slides with you, available there at this URL on the left-hand side. So the question is, what is the best way to communicate this to users, where we're up to? I'm not looking for answers right now. These are one of the things that we're going to be looking for answers, as Chris mentioned before, kind of once I finish the presentation. But what we're not sure about is, are we communicating this in the best possible way? For example, should we show somewhere the timeline built into the system where you can see where we are in the next testing cycle with a link through to the beta site, so people can see, any admin can get access to it and see where we are and see whether the system's been frozen and see whether testing. They're the kind of things, kind of ideas we're looking for. Thanks, Rolf. Next slide, please. Thanks. So the next question is, make a quick note of that one. Okay, the next question is how to choose what to include in the updates. So the way we do it at the moment, it's obviously part of that choice. This is week 0 to 8 when we're doing that analysis of the Blue Sky tasks. Part of it is the steering group meetings. So that's when we're going to obviously be talking about them in future, not in this one, but in future ones, we're going to be talking about them and getting your feedback on it. Another major factor is, if it's a security risk. Now, if it's a security risk and it's kind of a major one, then we just fix it straight away. We obviously don't wait for updates. We have to fix it straight away. If it's something we say, oh, it would be slightly safer if it was, if we implemented this piece of technology, then that's the kind of thing which will pretty much always get forced into the next update, whatever the next update is. Also, the type of update. So what we'll tend to do is, rather than take, if we have one page where we're making 4 updates on that particular page and we're changing the layout and we're adding things to it, then we'll often look for similar updates or updates that also would take place in the same page and try and group them together and say, okay, then let's do a full refresh of this opportunity screen or whatever it is. So it's, the type of update is certainly one of the key features. How many users does it affect? So we do a bit of analysis on that. How many of admins is it actually going to help? And that kind of feeds into the next one down, I suppose, how frequently is a function used as well. So that's not just how many admins. Like you could say, okay, well, the create opportunities page, that could affect every admin, but then you realize that every admin uses that function many, many, many times. So that is obviously a frequently used function. So if we can enhance that function or improve that function, then that would give more weight to put it into the next update. And finally, support tickets as well. Obviously, as part of that blue, what tends to happen if someone puts something on a support ticket and we'll analyze that and that gets put into the blue sky list anyway. So that's picked up. One of the things I don't mention here is obviously we have customers who pay for additional functionality, and that will always get pushed into pretty much always get pushed into the next update as well. So if there's something, but even those updates, we don't just take any update, as some of you are probably aware. We have to we look at it and say, well, does this logically fit into our system? Does it fit now? Does it make sense to put it in there? Or is this just a function that's going to work just for one particular client? Is there a way, so we have to take all these things on board. Okay, so how we choose it is that one there. Next slide, please, Rolf. Okay, and then capturing that feedback. So is this the best way, the things I just mentioned before, is it the best way to capture this feedback from the users? So using a function usage analysis, seeing how many times functions are used, steering group, the support tickets, the blue sky tasks, having conversations with users as well, and training sessions is something I missed off there. Training sessions is quite a key one. If I'm sat in a training session and I see a number of people struggling with a particular function, then I'll put that in the blue sky task and say, this needs improvement and give some ideas around it. Going back to Rolf's thing, I suppose, a possible additional methods of kind of talking about these or ranking these new functions. Should it be built in, as Rolf's kind of mentioned a function, but there where it's actually built in there? Should it be questionnaires that are emailed out? So how we capture this information from yourselves, is there a better way to do it, I suppose, is one of the key questions. So I think that's the last of my slides there, Rolf. No, all right, good. And what is the, let's make a note in a second. And what is the best way to communicate new features to users as well? So obviously, go through the process again. We capture all the information, okay, and we're going to discuss the best ways to capture that information. We then sit and we analyze it. We discuss it with yourselves and the steering group. We have a final list. We then go and do an update. Once we've done the update, just at the point we're about to roll it out, what's the best way to communicate that update? Now, at the moment, we have a series of training webinars, so we tend to do them kind of one week after another, where we're picking a particular new function and I'll sit and discuss it and demo it to people and show how it works. We also have system notifications. So when you log in as admin, you see on the right-hand side, you get a panel that will slide in saying, with like a video and this, that, and the other, showing this is a new function that's been added. We also have our blogs and our user manuals. But is there any other possible additional methods that we should think about yourself? What's the best way for me to tell you about a new function that we've developed? I suppose essentially what we're asking here. Are we missing a trick anywhere? Okay. I think that's it from me, Rolf. Is that the last slide? Yeah, I think it's the last slide, yeah. So we need a method, obviously, following on from this, to kind of capture your ideas. And we've got lots of comments down here. Has anyone got anything to say at this point? Has anyone got anything they want to mention? Anything we've missed? Nope, I can't see any hands up. Okay, so we're opening the floor to any questions regarding anything we covered at all. Nope. What do you think the best way of us capturing answers to these questions is? I mean, I'm just kind of conscious if I ask you all now, it could be a bit messy trying to capture it like this. We're thinking like a poll or something, Chris.
Yeah, I think for this first session being as many people online as there are, an open forum is probably not the best place to just have people shouting out here because there's too many of you. So what the intention is to follow up this session with a Google form, which we'll have some questions on, where there'll be a bit of chance for you to give us some more, an open text box, and maybe give a ranking of sort of the strength of the importance of some of these things to you. So we'll be putting something together this afternoon that follows up what we've talked about, where you can give us a little bit more of an idea of what's important, why is it important. If you've already got an example of you using this kind of stuff, that kind of thing, where we can get a little bit more. We could talk a bit deeper into some of this stuff on your individual cases. For example, I can see Alex is there. What Liverpool as a football club are doing may be very, very different to what Flora's doing as a youth centre in London. So there's going to be particular nuance based on the type of organisation you are and what you're looking for. What we've got to try and do is get that balance. So if we send out the Google form and you can give us a bit of information, a bit of help in terms of understanding where you're at, we'll take what's been asked in these questions here as well, and we'll put that into the thinking, and then it might be a case of we start to form smaller specialist interest groups, where we've got a group of local authorities, we've got a group of sports organisations, we've got a group of volunteer centres that have some particular interests that are more pertinent to them, and we come back and we talk to you about those specific things in a smaller, more focused manner. Like I say, we're trying not to overwhelm you with asking you loads and loads of stuff, but we need to start somewhere to get an idea of what's important. So it's kind of trying to get that balance right with you, as to you telling us what you need, us getting a bit more from you to understand the detail of that, and then going back to you with some ideas and that impacting the stuff that Rolf started with in terms of what's on the must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, what-haves. So yeah, that's the idea. That this afternoon we'll follow you up with a questionnaire with some of these things.
I just wanted to address one of the points in the questions about the interface changing too radically. That is partly the reason behind this sort of focus set of guidelines. Is we don't go in new directions all the time, and we stick to not rigid, but a fairly consistent interface all the time. And to put your mind at rest, those pages you see, like the opportunity management page, they'll stay broadly the same. The odd feature might change a little, and there might be some new features coming in and out, but the overall look and where things are and how they work will stay the same. So if you are creating help videos, they'll still be pertinent moving forward.
Do we, Rolf, since we've got these questions here, do you and Steve want to start addressing a couple of them?
Yeah, we could do that. From top to bottom. Kerry Jones has got the first question here. It would be very beneficial for us to be able to put together a report of all volunteering opportunities for our area, which if the organisation is not registered with us. So just to fill some of the other people in, Kerry Jones's application is part of a larger, what we call an orbit, which runs throughout nearly the whole of Wales. So each individual application only has some limited access to that larger orbit, but the reporting is based within their single application. Now there is an orbit central report, which Rodri and people, some other people have got access to, Kerry. So it might be worth speaking to them about getting access on that data. I'm assuming you're getting a sort of postcode restricted search or report about opportunities in that area. We could do something like that. I guess speak to Rodri first about it and find out if there's something on the central admin page that can help you first. As a fudge, of course, you can always go to the volunteer search page and search by postcode, and that'll let you know what's in that area. But yeah, speak to Rodri first about that. Claire Redford Kerr, ability to upload documents to volunteer profile that is only visible to admin. This is actually a feature which is on our Moscow sort of roadmap list. It's not slated for inclusion. It's not got a confirmed inclusion yet, but we are looking at it. There's certain sorts of issues around security of documents, what type of documents are being uploaded, how big they are, where they're going to be stored, those sorts of things. But in terms of technical problems, there isn't really any technical problems with doing that. We just have to decide how best to get it sorted. So that is in the sort of blue sky wish list at the minute. Callum, the option to set a different contact on opportunities. An organisation will have different projects with different coordinators and contacts. That's not something we've been asked for before. As a workaround, obviously, you've got the description box where you can put in those details. There is a feature request in our list already for having multiple provider accounts. So multiple people associated with one provider account, which I guess would cover that process as well. So that's certainly something we're thinking about, although there's no fix for it right now. Samantha Stubbs, community tasks would be useful for organization run time banks. Yeah, we have looked a little bit about time banking. It's sort of, to some extent, it's fallen out of favor, time banking. People have stopped talking so much about monetizing or putting value directly on volunteering activities. But in terms of the community aspect of it, yeah, it's great for those sorts of things, where the volunteering is small, micro volunteering, it's local, and it's often people just informally exchanging services, I suppose.
Do you think, just curious, I just want to jump in there. I'm just curious, for those of you who kind of use both the opportunities and the tasks, is there any confusion between where volunteers go to see the opportunities and they go to a different page to see the task? Is that, we were worried when we rolled that out. I know kind of Rolf's mentioned this before about whether we bring those search pages, we bring them all into the same application in some way. I mean, is it a problem? Is anyone using tasks and opportunities, first of all, I suppose? Does anyone use both? Okay, Claire. Do you see it, Claire, do you see it as it confuse users at all? Is there an issue around it when they don't know where to look at the opportunities, whether to look at the tasks, or you know?
Yeah, it is confusing, and I think because we're only using it, or we launched our system specifically using the community tasks for our COVID response. So all the volunteers were new to the system, so we had providers putting opportunities on that were COVID related, but we also were linking with a local authority to have the individual community tasks too. It did confuse people who were very techie, because they were having to either go to an app or go to click somewhere else. And I know you changed the intuitiveness of how that works, but I still think it confused people because they were two separate things.
Yeah. No, we thought that might be the case. But yeah, it's good to have confirmation. Okay, Rolf, you good?
Slide down, Volunteer Glasgow, talking about inclusion. We use a wheelchair icon on the volunteer account to indicate that they've specified that they have a special need or disability. Yeah, it's a sensitive area. We did change the icon a while back to what's called the active chair icon, which was meant to be a less passive icon. Moving forward, we'll probably be moving away from icons generally if we can. If there's room for a text or a tooltip which explains fully what it means at that point, that's always better than an icon that maybe isn't definitive. People have different ideas what it means. As in this case, most people would look at it and assume it means that they are a disabled user, or even a chair user, because of the icon. So yeah, that's an interesting point. We'll definitely make a note of that, and I'll look up where that icon is used and see if it's possible to just replace with text where appropriate, and get rid of that icon. Alex McBride, Renfrewshire.
I think someone say
sorry.
something.
Yeah.
No, it was just me, Tracy Stone from Volunteer Glasgow, just in response to that. That's great. Thanks, Rolf. It's just the fact that the symbol on the provider side, it goes red when they've alerted to something. It's just a really negative way to have it.
Negative
so
connotations, I understand that completely. It's just a thoughtless sort of piece of coding, I guess. It's the first thing you think of, red green.
Sure.
Quite those sorts of things. But yeah, we'll certainly take a look at that. But, icons are always problematic because they don't generally impart enough meaning in of themselves unless they're very, very well known.
And the fact, and I said in my comment, somebody could just literally say they've got an allergy, and they get the red wheelchair symbol, which is really odd. So
I know where you're talking about now in the interface. Maybe you can look at maybe a warning symbol or just an alert symbol or something. But I'll take a look.
I mean, the purpose, I suppose, is the purpose of doing that is so the provider, when they see that volunteer, it's to prompt them to look at the volunteer's kind of profile to see if there's, how they can accommodate for that volunteer. That's what the prompt is. But I think you're right. I think maybe a wheelchair is probably not the right icon for it, if an icon should be used at all. Yeah, we'll look into that.
So maybe it's not necessarily that easy, I think, to where to go on that profile. I don't think that providers necessarily know right away to where to get that information. So even if if that box alerted to something, if it could just take the provider to that information right away, that would be really useful.
Yeah, it might be better if we, instead of maybe combine any pertinent information that the volunteers imparted, and just make it a sort of an alert that you can roll over, click, and get that information, which includes disabilities, special needs, any other information they've decided to put down. And then we wouldn't need to use the icon tool.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because we do that already, don't we? What's the other icon we do that? We roll it over and it shows that on the experience, ask for experience. You hover the mouse over there and it brings up the experience that they've entered and when they've joined the opportunity. So I suppose there's the ability to do a very similar thing for the, if they have any, as we said, if they have any kind of issues or things that the provider needs to be aware of in terms of disability, that makes sense to use a similar kind of method there. Okay.
Okay, Alice from Renfrewshire. On the community task for opportunity providers, would probably use it if it's integrated into the type of opportunity. So this is something we were, I guess, talking about where community tasks should live. Should they be completely separate? Should it be a different offering altogether? Should it be completely integrated? There's pros and cons to both of them, but it sounds like Alice would prefer to see it more fully integrated and not even as a separate creation process. I'm not sure we would ever be able to integrate that completely into the opportunity creation page. There's no reason it couldn't live in the same sort of geographical place in that area, but I think it would always be a separate process to create opportunities because they are quite different. But yeah, certainly it's something we've got to think about.
Yeah, in terms of creating them, I think you're absolutely, and Rob's absolutely right. I mean, they're completely different information that we capture from the tasks compared to the opportunities. In terms of where they appear, where volunteers search, I think that's where Claire mentioned before. That's where the confusion is. So that's something we need to have a look at. Do we make them appear on the same page? Rob's probably cringing when I'm saying this. We need some way that they don't have to go to two completely different areas or different URLs to actually view what opportunities / tasks are available in their area. That's something we need to look at.
I think what Alice is talking about here as well is that you may have an opportunity with related tasks associated with it. So it's almost like where it sits in the hierarchy as well. I think that's also,
I see.
Also what she's maybe thinking about, or what we need to think about, that you maybe sign up to an opportunity, and then when your opportunity, you may have access to certain tasks that are associated with the opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, Alice's requirements could perhaps be satisfied with just a different type of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
They may not need all the extra stuff around tasks, but we'll be in touch about it. It's not something I can answer on the spot. Volunteer Glasgow systems send out an automated email to providers when they register. I'm pretty sure that's already on the custom email list. And do you know where that is? Is there more than one person for Volunteer Glasgow here?
No, sorry, it is me.
It's just you. Yeah, do you know where those custom emails are?
I do, actually. So is that something that we can...
Yeah, there's a big list there, and you can order them by their target. So if you order it by target, you'll see all the provider ones grouped together, and that registration email is there. You can put attachments in it. Really good at time, and let them know exactly what they need to do.
Okay, just ignore that one then. Thanks for that.
Volunteers cannot remove themselves from opportunities. Instead, they can just check status. They can, but it's different depending on what sort of opportunity it is. So if it's a flexible opportunity, they can just remove themselves on the spot. Or retire from the opportunity, as it were. If it's a sessional-based opportunity, they can leave individual sessions. And if they leave all the sessions, then they're not on the opportunity anymore. But if they've got sessions they've already been to, then they have to mark those as being not attended rather than leave. They're supposed to have already gone to them.
Unless it's changed, I think it was something to do with before. Like they'd signed up to an opportunity, or like they've showed interest in an opportunity that can't think of the wording right now, but they've
when they apply first.
Yeah, they've applied.
Yeah, when they apply, they can't withdraw an application once they've made it. Only the admin can take them off. So that's certainly something we can look at. That's not a technical issue. That's just something we've forgotten to put in probably.
Okay. No, that's what I mean by that, and that would be really useful.
Yeah, we can certainly do something about that.
Thanks.
Admin alert when opportunities approaching closing date. That is on our list of things to do. I think it might actually be in that Moscow table. I can't remember if I left it in or not. But I can't know if I decide whether it's a small thing or a big thing. Yeah, we looked at adding these alerts for people, for providers, when their opportunities come to a close, and letting them know the sort of things they might have to do around that closing date, like make sure the hours are logged, add new sessions if they don't want it to close, those sorts of things. That would be a custom email that you'd be able to edit afterwards. And also to volunteers when flexible offer is coming up to close, make sure they've logged their hours, same sort of thing, prompting them to fill out the post opportunity survey if there is one. Anything else that's supposed to happen when the opportunity is close to finishing. And so yeah, that's in the list. I can see that coming in the next version because it's not that complicated a thing to add. Number 5, added notes section for admin providers. We have received feedback from providers that this would be useful, as most currently have to take the information from Kinetic and input it into a separate spreadsheet. Okay, I don't fully understand that one. So there is a note section which is private for admins and private for providers on a volunteer profile. Is this that they can't export it in any sensible way? This is at 1024 Volunteer Glasgow, number 5. Have you found it? I can see you looking.
You're still on mute.
Yeah.
Tracy, there you go.
So, yeah. I was just thanks. I was just looking back there and what I've said. So it wasn't about adding into the spreadsheet or anything. It was more just there's no note section. Just if a provider wanted to add a note about an opportunity, or as admins we wanted to kind of write a little note on their opportunity. Just
okay. So I assumed it was for volunteers, but this is about opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of that. So like a little sort of notebook reminder list or something for the actual providers. Yeah, that's not difficult to implement. Has anyone else got any thoughts about that? What sort of things they'd use it for? Has anyone else thought of that?
Can I just add to that? On you go. We've created a separate spreadsheet so that we can add notes about opportunities, but it's obviously not something that the providers can get involved in. So any opinions on that would be interesting.
Sorry, just a note from us, just at Glasgow Uni as well. I think that would be useful for us too, because we kind of act as provider for most of our opportunities. But for example, things like we would have like a classroom support opportunity that students would apply for. And it would be good even just if there was like a note section there for us just to like know which, like we could just put down like which schools we place certain volunteers in. I think having notes on individual volunteers is really useful as well, but I agree. But I think it'd be useful to have that attached to an opportunity as well.
Do you think you'd need the same flexibility with volunteers? So private notes and notes are viewable and editable by the provider and the admin?
Yeah, I think it'd be useful for both. I think having it on the opportunity itself is just good. Like it just lets you kind of, I don't know, it's like it lets you kind of see it instantly without having to go searching into a volunteer's profile, if that makes sense. It's quite good to just have the information like up and ready as soon as you click on the opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That'll definitely go in the list.
Okay.
The community tasks reports, they're on the way. At least a simple set to start with. Let me just check where I am with them. But yeah, they're obviously required. It's just we never got around to finishing them. All the rest of it's going on. They'll appear just in your standard reporting page as a new tab on the left. I'm mostly finished, so they should appear quite shortly. So they'll be coming. So JAWS, the next question, various issues with JAWS navigation system. JAWS, for people who don't know, is a screen reader piece of software. It's ancient, but it's sort of like the default for people. It's been going for years and years. So it reads the web page out for you. in order for that to work, everything has to be labeled up correctly so the screen reader knows what it is and what it belongs to, because there's no visual context. So just because a bit of text is near something and you can associate it, the screen reader might not necessarily be able to do that. And I don't know if anyone's ever watched someone using a screen reader, but if you haven't, definitely get on YouTube and go watch someone using a screen reader. It's amazing. The speed it speaks and the speed they understand that text is incredible. But it also highlights how terrible some sites are for navigation. So it's something we think about a lot. We have tried to get it as good as possible, but there's always holes, and with updates, there's always sometimes you miss things and stuff doesn't work. So yeah, any evidence or experience you've got in using screen readers where you've come across an issue, please definitely let us know. We do carry out audits to make sure that it fits the WAC guidelines, but that's nowhere near as good as someone actually using it. We have got some contacts with British Blind Sport and a few other people, and we are in the progress of trying to bring some people on board who are lifelong users of assistive technology to help us find those issues. Because sometimes it's not that things are labeled incorrectly, it's just it doesn't work for whatever reason on a screen reader. It's not very convenient. So yeah, definitely anything you've ever got about that, let us know.
And what we need is an understanding of the page and the bit that hasn't worked, so Rolf can go in and explore and try and fix the specific problem. So if you do come across an issue, we kind of need as much detail about it as you can provide to help us go and find it and fix it. Otherwise, it's quite difficult sometimes to work out the specific page it's having the problem and things like that.
And as I'm not a user of assistive technology like yours, it's hard for me sometimes to test adequately. You subliminally cheat and things like that. So yeah, but that is gold dust. Any of that sort of information you can get off your users.
We've had some feedback recently, so we know there's a couple of issues that we are working on around Safari and around some ARIA tags with Rolf that we had highlighted from Durham. So those are on our sort of to-do list as it stands. But obviously, the more evidence we have that there's an issue, the higher it goes up the priority list. So if you know you've got those issues at the minute, please stick them on a support ticket and mind the Rolf to get them done.
Accessibility is a constant job, but it's important. Claire, report on opportunities due to expire. Okay, so you can, there's no report set. I'm guessing by expire you mean this end, either their suspend date or their last session date is due. Yeah, I've never really thought of adding it. I mean, you can search for opportunities on the opportunity search page and put a date in, closing date. So you can put the closing date a couple of weeks ahead and just have a quick look for now as a workaround. But yeah, we'll add that to our list of requested reports. It's not technically difficult to do.
I think is it to do with when you have a session, someone adds 12 months worth of sessions on there and it gets to the end of them 12 months. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, from a volunteer centre perspective, if we've got because we'll have lots of different organisations and opportunities on there, sometimes providers aren't great at keeping them up to date. So it's a way of us being able to kind of like email and prompt to say, is this, it's kind of like a review process, if you like, and it'll be a rolling programme. So years ago, we used to spend like 2-3 weeks just like ringing around all the organisations. Is this right? Is your opportunity still live? Blah, blah, blah. But actually having an ability to see a report, a list of those that are due, we can then have those discussions, if that makes sense.
I guess it also fits in well with the previous tasks about sending emails when opportunities are due to expire.
Okay. Yeah, but I think it's from a staff point of view in a service, it's useful for us to be able to then initiate a conversation, because quite often organisation people change as well, so that they might not be aware that that's how we're providing a service for them, if that makes sense. So it just initiates a conversation, well, at least once a year, if we're not linking in with them regularly.
Yeah, certainly that can be added on the list of reports. It's not a difficult report. Gemma, many of our students will be studying remotely from home this year, so a clear distinction between remote digital ops and in-person ops on a search page would be grand. They can filter by what we call home ops, and it does indicate on the search results if they are a home op, and if they're using distance as a sorting clause, which is the default if they put in a location at all. Then all the home ops appear at the top. So Gemma, is there anything else, any other ideas you've got about how to make those more obvious?
Sorry, I'll just put the camera on, it's a bit easier. I think that's fine. I think we still just get like a few students like ask because they're not sure. So I don't know whether it's just themselves, they're not kind of having a look at the filter options. I don't know, I was just more thinking of like, even if you could have, I don't know, because we had like a COVID event that we'd created, so it was obviously easy enough at the start of all this so that they could just dip into that for any kind of COVID related ops. So I don't know if it was something really obvious. There was like two things, like home working or home volunteering, sorry, or like in person. But then I guess we could always do that ourselves if we find that there's like still.
It's that interesting one again around icons, isn't it? That what is a home working icon that people recognise, and is it strong enough? We've had this debate a few times here in the office about that particular issue, and we know in Wales that when people search, things are appearing in Cardiff because that's where the organisational address is, but it's actually a home op, and it can affect the weighting of what looks like people's results. But really, it means that it can do anywhere. So if people are searching by any distance, so it's a tricky one as to meeting people's expectations. There's two things: one, how do we make it obvious, and two, how do we meet people's expectations of what they expect to see from a search result? Is the two elements.
So this is what it looks like on the volunteer side. So it's the second option here, and there is an explanation of what that means. If there's no location, so if they're not logged in, we know their home location. If they're not logged in and they haven't given a location, then obviously we can't order by distance. So the home ops, you get an icon here. Unfortunately, the demo site doesn't have any home ops. You get an icon here to tell you that it's a home op. And the distance clause, if it was ordered by distance, would be naught. It doesn't actually say naught. It says, I can't remember the exact words, but it says something else there instead of a distance. It says this is an at-home opportunity. But if they don't have a distance or a location, then they just appear mixed in based on the other criteria of how well it matches a search, how recently it was added, those sorts of things. So I can understand. I mean, it is possible to miss even something as big as this, but I'm not sure what else we could do. So I'm open to any ideas about how else. We've gone around in quite a few circles about how to order home ops and how to display them. It's the same on the map, because obviously they're all here, so they don't actually appear on the map at all because they're all in your house. So yeah, if anyone's got any ideas about that, let us know. But yeah, there are some notifications on the screen already about home maps, which is the best we've got at the minute. Okay, Kerry, again, it would be beneficial to have a link to up-to-date update on the system rather than have to access Facebook. So is this around the, what's happening in the next version? Kerry?
Yes, it is. Steve was saying like we can go onto Facebook for updates, but I think if the updates or information was actually on the platform, it'd be a lot easier, because sometimes you've got a few staff within the volunteer centre, then they can all access the updates. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, typo. As I mentioned earlier on, we'll be having this page here, the roadmap page. Yeah. Moving forward. Be beneficial, yeah. So I'll keep working on that. As I say, this is just a minimum viable at the minute, just a beta to see how it looks and works. I don't think we have spoke before about echoing our entire Asana project and make that available publicly, but it's not really for public consumption. I mean, there's spelling errors, typos, there's discussions between ourselves on it. A lot of the stuff is too small to warrant any interest from any of the customers. So I think this is the way forward for us, certainly in the medium term, is to put the big things here. So you get an idea of where we're heading. So do you think that would cover it for you? I mean, it's only accessible by admins. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. And I'd say you'd be able to vote.
If you think there's anything, if you do think, as I mentioned before, there's anything else that should be maybe included in that, I don't know what we call it, development, or what's it called at the moment, Rolf, under the help menu, help and support? What's it under? Roadmap. If there's anything else you think should be in there, like I say, maybe, whether it's a timeline showing where we are in that cycle or things like that, then let us know. Because let us know.
Claire's touched on the next question around a forum for ideas and resources, and the original idea was to use Facebook because a lot of that stuff a lot of the features were already there to do that kind of stuff within Facebook without having to rebuild them. We didn't want to rebuild Facebook in our own system to respond to unless we thought it was going to be of value to our administrators.
Perhaps what we could do here is this. Obviously, this is a little bit of interaction for you to upvote and downvote. Perhaps we could open these points up to a comment section, so you can comment under these tasks, and all those comments will be visible to everybody once we've moderated them for swear words and such.
I think that'd be a good idea.
Claire's got a hand up there.
I'm just thinking, I mean, just going by the chat here, I mean, there are certain things that we might be doing individually that might help other people. So, I mean, yep. I've just put in right at the bottom of the chat now a little, it's not necessarily a workaround, but it's an added bonus in terms of, you know, a question we've put in a provider's registration. It might help some of the other volunteer centres or, you know, volunteering brokers. And it's those kinds of little snippets of things. If people, rather than you guys have to create a new feature or function in the system, if there's a workaround that would work for everybody else that negates the need to develop, then it might be useful to have for us to just share that.
Yeah,
that was the primary reasoning behind the Facebook group, is we know there's a lot of expertise out there that's embedded in your heads.
Some people don't like using Facebook, though, to be honest.
No, of course, yeah.
I try to avoid it as much.
I'm always a big believer in. I mean, I'm a big believer in. I'm always pushing to get the functionality, you know, built into the system. So there's always, like, to be honest with you, there's always like pros and cons to it. So if you get it built into the system, I know what it's like. You've got your own jobs to do, and then this is something you do as part of your job, you know, and having to go to a different platform to do part of that job role, like Facebook, to discuss.
Yeah.
To discuss it, sorry, yeah. To discuss it, then I know it's an extra bit of a faff. So we're always looking at, can we just put it into the system? I'm always trying to drive to try and get it into the system. The downside is, you know, you often find yourself developing a lesser version of Facebook in this example. You know, I mean, all the functions you get in Facebook, there's a lot of additional functions there, and there's a lot of money's pumped into it. Develop, you know, ways to communicate with each other, and it's you can often end up creating a kind of a lesser, poorer version of it internally within. But I mean, maybe that's the way to go. Maybe if it's not that many features that are required, maybe that's the way just to bring it all into the system.
I mean, just as a straw poll, how many people here wouldn't use the Facebook Managers group?
I only use it intermittently, I have to say, and I don't.
Is it just because you forget that it's there, I suppose, because you're not a frequent user?
Put your hands up if you have used it, if you have gone to the Facebook.
Sorry, I can't figure out where to put my hands up on Google Team.
Oh, it's a natural, put your hands up and wave at the camera sort of thing, Abed.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you can't.
We haven't got a hands up feature on the. Yeah, there's quite a few.
Just say your hands are up.
Yeah.
Google Meet is more.
I don't actually use it now.
Okay, so there's probably resources that are being underused there for some of the reasons Claire said, but also probably because we're not very good at letting people know. Or, I mean, they are available on the help here. You've got the volunteer manager resources. That was something we put together, which is a few bits and bobs, logs and stuff. And the managers group is the second one here, and there's a link there to get to the Facebook page to join it.
Maybe is there any? Would people be interested in the ability to share documents with other admins, to have a forum where you can talk? Obviously, we've got a page there where you can talk about our next update features and this, that, and the other. But what about allowing somewhere for you to kind of share ideas with each other and resources with each other? Is that something people would be interested in? And be honest, if you think no, I'd never do that, or I'd never look at it, or
sorry, Steve. I think my ambition always for this area of the site was at some point we could have a generic chat room, if you will, for lack of a better description, and then also we could, when customers join us, we could add them into sector-specific chat rooms as well. So all our local authority bods are in one room.
That's a good idea.
All our volunteer centres are in another room. So when we were talking before about these focus groups, we can have that was always the ambition for this section of the site. To build that is quite a big undertaking, and it means we're not building something else when we're building that kind of stuff. And the idea was to use Facebook to try and get the temperature of how popular a feature like that would be, because people always say they'd like something like that, but then the reality is they never check it, never do anything with it, and never use it. So it's kind of getting that balance right of the amount of work involved in building it versus how useful it will be to you guys. I know that everyone likes the idea of having a chat with each other, but the reality is the day-to-day job gets in the way of, you know, the networking part of it often, because you've just got to get on with what you've got to do today. So that's it. It's how important that is to you, how and how much you think you use it, and how much you would use it to against the undertaking of building something that bespoke within the product. Claire, you got your hand up. Sorry, go on.
Well, I've used similar kind of forums with other platforms, I have to say, and I found it really useful in connecting with other people that are doing a similar kind of job, that do things in different ways that I haven't thought of, and they've kind of broken it down into separate things. So it might be things around volunteer, you know, the actual opportunities. It might be about organisations. It might be about communication. It might be about different things. So I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to have a chat about that separately if you want me to.
It's certainly something on our radar. It's like I say, it's that the desire for the features versus the reality of people using the features, getting that balance right. And if we understand how much it's going to be used and how much people want it and how high a priority that is, we certainly see as an organization the value of the network we're building of the customers. We know that you guys have a wealth of knowledge that we'll never have, and we'd love to be able to get you all talking to each other in a more fluid manner. And I know from my work over the last couple of months with local authorities that Elaine and the guys from Glasgow have been inundated with potential new client local authorities we talk to sort of give reference and things like that. And I know it puts them under a little bit of pressure when we do it over email, whereas we had a forum, there might be a better way of doing it. So we definitely see the value of it. It's just an appreciation from you guys as to, would it be used? Would you check it? Would you engage with it? Because it would be a significant undertaking to build the thing.
I guess for now, get on this page, join the managers group. We'll see how it goes in the next sort of 6 months to a year, and see if we can get some uptake on Facebook, which I guess informs us as to the value people are placing on it.
And the problem we got with that though is if people aren't engaging with it because it's a separate application and it's not inbuilt, well, then is it a true measurement of how?
I think what we said, Steve, you know, some of these features will start to introduce bit by bit around building this network of users. We know we want to do it. We'll just, it may be a bit of a slow burn as we add bit by bit and build it up within the app itself. That's, I think, the approach we'll have to take with it.
But if you've got good ideas, please do share them on the managers group.
Yeah.
I guess we can also take a more active part in that managers group of curating it and also letting everyone know when new stuff's been posted. Because if you're not on the group, or you're not active on the group, or you're not active on Facebook, and you don't have Facebook notifications on, things like that, which I know I don't because they're annoying, then we should maybe do some work at a group every fortnight, perhaps, grouping together all the stuff that's been put on the managers group and disseminating it, or even maybe pursuing people, pursuing maybe the wrong word, people we know that have got good ideas, to try and get them to put something on the Facebook managers group, so then we can disseminate it and maybe encourage a sort of organic growth that way.
Yeah, so I guess, cool.
Sorry, can I just ask where that page is there now on the screen? Where have you found that?
It's in the help menu, volunteer manager resources.
And that's new, is it?
No, it's been there for
about 12 months.
A little while.
Oh, okay. I'm not.
This is another example, one of the things we add, which we don't tell you about very well. So.
Because if you looked at that, the last time you looked at that menu was just to go to support tickets. You probably glance over it and wouldn't notice a new new input in there. It's very easy to do. It's incredible.
Can I just respond to Claire's point there about you know, sort of forum to share ideas and stuff? And you know, you guys know what the setup is in Wales. We've got you know, several orbit platforms for each county, and then a national one. And we haven't met as a DG group, we call it. But what we tend to do, Claire, is we meet together to discuss, you know, any developments or any issues, any training, and it's in response to, again, you know, high staff turnover in volunteer centres, and that constant training up and sharing information as well, because some staff in some areas use the system in different ways. But any sort of platform or any means of communicating between volunteer centres across the UK would be greatly appreciated in whatever means, whether it's through the TK system or outside of it, you know, maybe just twice or maybe once a year, just to keep abreast of. I think, you know, how future volunteering is going to look like as well from the perspective of volunteer centres, you know.
We, Calvin, we definitely see the value of it. Like I say, we've got the Facebook group, which for the time being is probably the best we can do in the very near future. But we definitely take on board what you're talking about in terms of the role of the system isn't just to manage volunteers; it's to help strengthen this network between our customers. So we do see that as a part of our offer, and it is something that we will continue to talk about here in the office and look at how we can strengthen that. If you are running sessions for groups of volunteer centres or for groups of organisations, and we can support that in some way, let us know. You know, if we can use the notification system that we've got built in and things like that, do inform us. Drop me an email or Steve an email, and we'll promote that via the notifications panel to the other users. So if there is things we can promote elsewhere to our customers, keep us in the loop. Let us know.
Chris, that'd be amazing. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks.
Okay, the next point from Volunteer Glasgow fits into that. They've got a host of resources, so I hope they're willing to share some of those on the managers group. This is a point I touched on earlier on about the interface not changing too radically. It won't now in the future change too radically from that focus idea. Certainly medium term, unless it all goes disastrously wrong and everyone hates it. Carl went again about the videos. I mean, we have the same issue ourselves in that videos can be quite time-consuming to create, and if they're very specific, like go here, point here, press this, they can get out of date, and it's hard to remember or realize when they become out of date, and to keep on top of creating new ones. Me and Steve have a lot of chat about this.
There's a very nice tool out there called Fleek, which is a super fast way to create the videos. We can create those how-to videos in a matter of minutes now using that tool. So it is worth a little look at. I believe, is it free? Fleek?
It's mostly free. Yeah, you have to pay for certain assets and stuff. I mean, it's pretty robotic, and you can lead to a lot of very similar-looking videos. But the trade-off is they're very quick to create and produce.
Put one on now, Rolf.
Let's
go to the yeah.
So they look a bit like this. You won't get the sound, I imagine. So you create a bunch of screenshots just with text, screenshots from the actual app. You can zoom in on the screenshot, and you just type in the text you want to say over the top of the video. And as I say, a rather robotic voice tells you. You've probably heard these on the site. You can go along to the help menu and check one out anyway. So you can get a feel for how they look. But yeah, they're all done with Fleek. And it is pretty quick. So that's in
FLEEQ.
Oh, Ebed, you got your hand up there, bud? Oh, you're on mute, mate. You're on mute, mate.
Yeah. What was the name of the app, please?
Fleek.
I'll put it in the notes here.
Yeah.
Fleek. FLEEQ.
Yeah.
There you go. Just drop it into the chat, Rolf. You're faster typer than me.
Yeah, so there it is. So it's fleek.io, but it's in the chat at the bottom now. Super quick. There is a choice of voices. The more you pay, the more assets you get, more different types of voices. Maybe the voices get less robotic, the more you pay, I don't know. How-to videos are good. Forms of a poll. Flora, is it possible to share the comments in the chat post meeting? Yeah, absolutely. We'll collate them all, including the answers. And obviously this will be recorded, this video, so you can refer back to it at a later time as well. Multiple accounts per one provider. Flora, could the timeline show more detail? For example, when volunteers join and are removed from groups. So is this the Flora? Is this the volunteer sort of achievement timeline?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think at the moment, from what I can see, the volunteer sort of timeline seems to be quite sort of underused. There isn't an awful lot that it records. It just seems to record, kind of when the volunteer registers. And I wonder whether that could be used a bit more to just show a volunteer's journey and history, because I'm an organisation that we actually we recruit volunteers, and
and they start with us. And so it isn't just about joining an opportunity, it's about, you know, joining the organization. And it's really important for us to see when volunteers kind of start and also when they leave us, because they volunteer with us on a weekly basis. They could, you know, volunteer for 6 months. Sometimes they stay for like sort of years. Sometimes they just stay for one academic term. But I just wondered whether that, you know, kind of timeline can show a bit more.
Definitely, it is one of the tasks on our list. It's already in there. We've already talked about it. It was developed, and the initial sort of what it records is when you join opportunities, when you join your first opportunity, when you register, when you reach certain hour milestones, 5 hours, 10 hours, 50, 100, 200, and 500, I think it is, and when you get awarded the badges from the system. But there's loads of stuff that it doesn't record. Like when you actually log the actual log events of the hours, when you join your first different type of,
if you upload ID, qualifications,
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
So there's a lot it doesn't involve, because originally it was envisaged to be a sort of an achievements timeline rather than just everything I did timeline. So yeah, we're definitely looking at getting some more stuff in there. I don't know, that's still where it's placed as a sort of the achievement. So I don't know how suitable some of the more mundane events would be. I can say they would be useful to you, but I'm not sure if they fit into that purpose. So that doesn't mean we can't use a separate timeline
or a filter, some kind of filter on it.
Yeah,
maybe.
So I can just show the achievements on the volunteer side, but show everything on the admin side. Yeah, it's definitely in there. There are some technical issues about how you record these things, because sometimes they're not fixed in time. So things like hours, for instance, you log hours and then someone else takes those hours away, or adjust the hours and bits and bobs like that. So it's not something you want to be doing real time. You want to find out a way of recording these events as accurately as possible as a one-off, and then just pulling them all out in one go. So it's not super easy to record some things, but it is on there. It is in the list. I'll add it to the Moscow table. We'll see what other people have got to say about it. But yeah, I can certainly see the benefit in it. And as I say, we have talked about it.
Yeah, if it could have, you know, joining a group and, you know, sort of leading a group, that could be a really helpful thing for us.
Well, if you want to open a support there, or anyone else goes for as well, if you want to open a support ticket and sort of put down in writing any of these ideas, as I say, you can now highlight a support ticket as a feature request. Just stick your thoughts in there, and then we'll have a permanent record of it then.
Okay, great, thank you.
This is you'll love this
show
one,
them how
Rolf.
to do that, Rolf. Just show them where the option is, the additional option that you've added, if you can, on the support ticket.
Yeah. So you just create it as a normal support ticket, but the first answer at the top now is what type of ticket it is: support, bug report, or new feature request.
Okay.
It doesn't make any difference. It just means that we can categorize them more easily at our end.
Carwin has asked your favorite question, Rolf.
Have our own questions. Yeah, this is definitely in there. This is one of those things that scores high for impact, but also massively low for feasibility and high for sort of difficulty. So it bounces between must-haves and wish lists.
Not doing.
So this is all wrapped up into a larger sort of idea that we're talking about, which is about onboarding and role-based onboarding. So as part of joining opportunity, right now there's certain restrictions and references and bits and bobs like that people have to fill in before they can join an opportunity sometimes. But many of the more traditional sort of ways that volunteer software is used, like for events, or if you're in the NHS or something like that, where things are much more rigid and much more common. The YHA would be another example of that. You've probably got opportunities which fit into nice roles, and the role is working at a shop, being on the front desk, helping the manager of a YHA hostel, those sorts of things. And there's certain bits of information and certain bits of stuff that the volunteer has to do before they're eligible for that opportunity. And that would involve questions, forms, perhaps filling things out. So this is part of that larger process, which is why it's going to take us a while to bring it to fruition. But it's definitely on the radar, and we're definitely talking about it. And that comes under a whole, as I say, role-based onboarding for volunteers.
Yeah, that's certainly something we've been talking about for 12 months as to how to achieve it without breaking everything we've already built already.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the easiest way to think about it is like a supercharged sort of groups idea. So whereas now you just stick a person in the group, which can act as a role, but there's no structure around that yet, and it's building up that structure. but it's difficult.
Yeah, we foresee it being really useful for organisations that have got higher risk type opportunities, where they have a lot of prerequisites required, or where they are repeating those opportunities in multiple locations and they need it to be quite fixed. So it's like I say, it is a particularly difficult problem to solve, but it's certainly up on the priority list, that one.
Sorry, Chris, can you just say what it is that you're talking about? Because I don't think...
Oh, sorry. So will there be an option for us to add our own questions to create to the Create Opportunities page? We're keen to promote opportunities where Welsh is either essential, welcome, or encouraged. We're currently looking at ways to boost Welsh-speaking volunteers and opportunities. A third of volunteer registration in Wales have indicated they can speak Welsh, which is a significant figure. So the question specifically there for Carwyn is, can he add his own set of information to an opportunity page beyond what we've got in our pro forma currently?
Okay.
And the answer is currently no, but the idea is that we would be able to enable the creation of an opportunity under this concept of a role that has more complex requirements that can be created in association with that role. So it might have a different onboarding process that's particular to that role. It might have an application process, for example, with a form that's associated with that, or a series of questions that need to be answered as part of that onboarding to that role, which is different to our standard pro forma for an opportunity right now. So in essence, you could set up a role that has 15 extra elements before a volunteer is successful in that role, if that makes sense. So it gives you the ability to be much more formal in the process that a volunteer has to fulfill before they are eligible to be on that role.
Okay.
And you can create a role that then can be replicated, you know, because you created the role might be mentor, and once you create that role once, you can reuse that role in different locations, for example, without having to create the opportunity over and over again. It's the role is repeatable because it's the same prerequisites for wherever that role is taking place. So it's like a supercharged opportunity meets group. You got these sort of two things converging around this concept of a role.
It'll probably have a cape and a logo on its chest. That's super.
Yeah.
Can I just add on that as well?
Yeah.
Just quickly, we've been discussing. It's not in terms of. I mean, you're talking very technical here. But it's not. It's not really in terms of prerequisites. What we've discovered is that there's an appetite for for us to collect data on which opportunities would welcome people to learn their Welsh or to be using their Welsh. Because at the moment it's hard for us to be to search for opportunities where somebody say, I want to speak Welsh, or I want somewhere to go to learn Welsh. Here in Gwynedd, where I am, for example, in North Wales, it's quite straightforward. The majority of people speak Welsh here, but it's just for us to be across Wales to be able to pull up reports where we can say, okay, you can use Welsh here. It's either welcomed or essential. But it's about that whole process of collecting.
That is slightly different, Rolf.
Yeah. Sorry if I wasn't clear.
We talked about this before with Carwyn about right now. The only option is to use the tags to tag an opportunity up as Welsh friendly or Welsh language support, those sorts of things, and try and use consistent tags, which you can.
Yeah,
forward the tags and change the tags by the admin menu, but it's not perfect. It's not ideal. And it doesn't get any response back from the volunteer. It just lets the volunteer know that this opportunity gives them a chance to practice their Welsh.
It's been a high.
We've got there halfway.
It's a high-profile discussion. We've had meetings with the Welsh Language Commissioner and Welsh governments who want to know this information and be able to direct people and help organisations, because there's the Welsh language law, which people have to meet the standards and stuff. And there's all of that background discussion going and how we embed that into promoting volunteering opportunities.
That might be a custom conversation for between us and you and Rodri Carwyn as to how we deal with that for the Welsh customers.
That's great.
Okay.
Have you tried using the tags already?
We're encouraging people to use the Cymraeg tag, which is Welsh for Welsh.
Yeah.
But it's just difficult getting the word out there, and as the tags are very open-ended. Yeah.
Oh, dwi eisiau garage Cymraeg. I spent 20 minutes of rugby practice yesterday playing the wrong version of touch because I hadn't understood what they said.
Okay.
Okay, so there's an example here from Claire about some of this sort of knowledge that can be passed around. So they've added a custom question in the provider's registration page to ask for a general purpose email in case the provider that's signing up changes jobs or disappears or doesn't answer their email anymore. So that's a good example there of ways to problem solve without necessarily requiring a new feature. Do we have a YouTube channel as well? Oh, yeah, Callum's answered that for us. Thanks, Callum.
I think, yeah, I really like the idea of splitting the groups into different areas. To be fair, I didn't realize there was a Facebook group until today. There we go, Jessica, no problem.
So Callum's suggesting rather than a technology platform or forum, we just get together to chat in a sort of quarterly measure. I don't see how we can't do both.
Yeah, that's certainly some part of the reason for these groups, and as these develop over time, and we do maybe break into different thematic areas and things like that, there will be more opportunity for you guys to talk to each other. If there's an appetite for more of that, we will endeavour to try and provide more of that. And assuming we get back to some kind of normality next year, we will be running our conference again. I know it's been 2 years since we did the last one. We had a bit of an issue with Manchester Met, who we do it in partnership with last year. So that will be coming back in 2021, assuming we're allowed to get in groups more than 6. Otherwise, it's not much of a conference. But yeah, the ambition is to bring those back. One of the other ambitions is to potentially offer some kind of refresher training and some sort of new person training ongoing throughout a year, where you would be there'll be a small charge to cover the cost for doing it for the day, but you'd be, rather than having to pay for a full day's training just for your organization, you'll be able to book a space on a course that will run quarterly in a particular area of the country. And we'll do some stuff around sort of some masterclass type stuff for existing users. And we'll be looking to do some stuff for when you got new staff that don't know how to use the system. They could come along and have an introduction to TeamKinetic. And we'll be looking to do those on a sort of quarterly basis. I guess we were just going to sort of put this out there and see, do you think there's an appetite for that? I think that'd be quite useful for people to have sort of a more formal ongoing training offer from TeamKinetic. I'll take that definite silence as yes.
Maybe it'd be good if you put, sort of a call out beforehand to ask what our, sort of training areas are, and then,
of course,
yeah, then I think that
what we've been doing, Flora, is looking at the support tickets that are coming through and trying to see if there's a thematic, if there's thematic issues that keep popping up for people, and then maybe offering some kind of, obviously it'll be online for the time being, but at some point some kind of in-person training to deal with the things that people seem to be regularly finding difficult. That's what we sort of said so far.
Yeah.
But yeah, I certainly would. I'm open to putting a call out there for, working out what those kind of masterclasses would be, and the tricky thing is, because our customers are all quite different, is finding those thematic areas and then being able to deliver it in a way that's useful to everyone that turns up. And it's a tricky one, or having people turn up that are beginners versus some of you guys that know the system inside out and back to front. So it's getting that balance right is quite tricky, especially if there's going to be a small charge involved. You want to make sure you're getting your value for money out of it. So
I think it'd be helpful even just to listen in, because I think it's such a powerful platform that it's very easy to miss, or not be using or not be aware of, like lots of the functions. So yes, it'd be interesting to be, be part of that.
Yep, of course. Brilliant. Okay, I think we've covered most of the questions. Then is there anything else anybody wants to add before we go, or anybody wants to take a chance to speak for a second? Vent any anger they've got, or anything like that. We're that's what we're here for today. That's good. No anger. That's always a relief. Rolf, Steve, have you got anything that you'd like to add to close?
Just for the training that I did, where I spoke with Steve yesterday. Pre-COVID, we were getting into a sort of rhythm doing these sort of classes these little Facebook and video tutorials every couple of weeks, I think it was, Steve. And we're hoping to get back to those again, even if it means recycling them and starting again with the same topics. So listen out for some of those. They're very short. I think they were only like 10, 15 minutes, weren't they?
Yeah. They're not long. Yeah, kind of bite size. Yep, I'm just glad you didn't have a nervous breakdown, Sam. You're welcome. I think that's it.
Well, thank you for your time. The feedback has been great, and it's like I say, this stuff is like gold to us. It really helps settle some of the arguments we have in the office when we're all falling out with each other about what we've got to do next. So it's really useful, and hopefully this is the start of something that will become part of the the ongoing process for the product moving forward. If anything else does pop up post us turning off here, you've got my email. It's chris@teamkinetic.co.uk. Feel free to drop me an email, and we'll do our best to get back to you. Keep an eye out for the questionnaire we're going to send out maybe this afternoon, maybe tomorrow morning, because there's been more stuff covered than we thought we would do. And we look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Have a nice rest of the day. Take care, guys.
Thanks very much, everybody.
I'm waving camera. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.